Don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk. It's based on our word of the week this week. Y'all know we do our teammate skills of the week to go along with our martial arts, parkour, and capoeira programs. And the skill of the week this past week that we've been talking about is one that I don't feel like gets enough play in the martial arts world today. And yet, it's one of the things a lot of people think of when they think of old school martial artists. And that is humility, right? The concept of humility. Now, I want to be clear right off the bat with this. Humility does not mean you think less of yourself. Humility just means you don't think less of others. And I want to make that distinction. Humility doesn't mean I lack confidence. Humility means I am confident. I know what I can do, but I also know what my weaknesses are and stuff like that. And I'm not going to look down on others or make assumptions about them. See, a lack of humility usually comes with too much ego. And in the martial arts world, that's what'll get you hurt when you're training. Having too much ego will get you hurt when you're training. So for example, when we're drilling something, some type of strike response, some type of self-defense thing, whatever it might be, when we're drilling something, the drill is not just about you. It's about your partner too. Too many people get into martial arts and they think of their partner drills as being about them and what they're learning and what they're picking up. But your teammates with your partner, it's also about what they are learning and what they are picking up and the habits that they are getting on top of that.
Which means that if it's my turn to do whatever we're working on, he needs to be a good partner and
I need to give her the chance.
It happen. Give me the opportunity.
Depends on the training we're doing, right? So if I'm first learning a technique or we're just, learning something, then we have to learn it cooperatively first because you're never going to be good at it fast unless you can do it slow. But if you do it slow, you're not going to make it work against an actively fighting opponent. This is true. Both things are true. So when you're first learning something, you need to learn how to do it right, which means you're going to have to do it slow a few times, which means you're going to have a partner that respects that, right? Now, in a couple of weeks of working on it or whatever, then we're going to speed it up. Then we're going to add resistance. Then we're going to add the fight, right? And then we'll see if you can still make it work. Or at the very least, what I talk about with my black belt's about, it's not about making a technique work. It's about being adaptable. So I confidently go for something and I commit to that thing, but the second I realize something's not going right, I need to be able to adapt and adjust to another thing. Now, this is part of humility. So what I've been talking about with my younger kids a lot this week is when you go against a larger partner or opponent, never make the assumption that they are stronger than you. When you go against a smaller, shorter opponent, never assume that they are weaker than you. Now, they might be, but that doesn't necessarily make it always true. And you get to this concept of judging people based on assumptions that you make. And that is hubris, right? That's ego. That's you comparing yourself to others going, oh, I'm obviously going to be better than this person because this person is smaller than me. Or I'm obviously going to be better than this or worse than this person because this person is bigger than me. Never make those assumptions. Always take every partner and every sparring partner and every fight you end up in, sport fight or otherwise, learn to take your opponents seriously. Even if they're smaller than you, bigger than you, or whatever. Don't let fear cloud you and don't let doubt cloud you. That's part of humility too. So like I said, humility is not thinking less of yourself. Humility is not making assumptions or thinking less of other people just because you think you're better than them. And just because you might be better at them than something doesn't mean they're not better at something than you. Maybe I'm a fantastic boxer. Maybe I'm a fantastic puncher. So I think I can outfight anybody. But then I run into someone who's incredible with low kicks, or someone who's incredible at distance management, or maybe a really good grappler that can get inside my punches, right? And if I've never trained with that type of person, then I'm going to struggle a lot, especially if I'm overconfident and go, well, I'm a great boxer, so there's no way they're going to be able to take me down. That kind of ego is what gets you taken down. That kind of ego is what gets you kicked in the face, right? So when you're training, you have to let go of that level of ego and instead rely on confidence. Here's the thing about confident people, and you can look at the top fighters or top athletes in any sport, and most of them, the vast majority of them, give a certain amount of respect to the people that they're going against. Even if they don't like that person, they're still going to be cautious that they understand that person has a great jab, or that person has a great boxing setup, or that person has a great footwork, and they're going to have to respect that. That's part of having enough humility to recognize that I might not like this other person, I might become a better fighter than them, but at the same time, they have some things that are tricky and really good too, and I need to be careful of those things. That's humility, right? And it comes out in professional athletes a lot because most professional athletes know what they're good at. They know what they're good at. But you know what else they know? They know what their weaknesses are. because you have to know your weaknesses at that level of a sport. You have to understand what your weaknesses are so you can try to prevent your opponent from taking advantage of those weaknesses. But this requires having enough humility to admit that you have weaknesses, to admit that you have gaps and that you can improve, right? Something I talk to my students about all the time. Martial arts, athletics, sports, all of them have this concept of striving for perfection, but you also need to understand that perfection does not exist in an athletic environment. Because if I come forward with something strategically fight-based, and I start winning all my fights because of it, well, all those fights are on video. So my opponents are going to get a hold of those videos. They're going to watch this unorthodox thing that I'm beating people with, and they're going to go, okay, when I go against that fighter, he ain't going to do that to me. I'm going to be waiting for him to do that. I'm going to let him set it up, and then I'm going to punish him for doing it. And that's why there's no such thing as perfection in athletics, right? Because anytime someone comes up with something that's working really well, a lot of times, well, their opponents are seeing it work, and they're working on the counters, right? And so striking and countering and offense and defense constantly evolve, and no matter what sport you're working in. But if you're so egotistical to think that you're always going to outdo somebody athletically, that's the quickest way to end up getting outdone on. One of my favorite examples of how ego can get in the way is our black belt test here is about a 6-hour test, and you have to pass 2 pre-qualifiers to get there. It is very tough, very, very tough. Like you fight for an hour straight after you've already worked out for an hour straight. Like there's a whole lot of stuff to it. And it's funny because every one of my black belts has went through it, right? Including this lady through her 50s and 60s, including moms, including dads, including sometimes younger teens, 13s, 14-year-olds. And yet I have yet to have had a single highly athletic person pass the test. Isn't that weird? So what I mean by that is, for example, there was a wrestler who competed at the state level, and he trained here too for about 3 or 4 years. Pretty good martial artist, not bad, but he liked to think that he was better than the other students here because of his wrestling background. And he would use it effectively against some people, but let's be honest, other people were really good at shutting him down. So it wasn't that he was able to successfully use it against everybody. And I liked having him use his wrestling technique in here because it allowed my fighters a chance to understand and learn how to defend against that style of takedowns and shoot-ins and double legs and stuff like that. We teach some of that stuff too. Now, when it came down to where he got a chance to pass his black belt test, he never even passed the first pre-qualifier. He was usually vomiting in the first 30 minutes. Why? Because it starts with a 2-mile run, followed by a minimum of 45 push-ups in 60 seconds and 45 sit-ups in 60 seconds. Immediately followed by 500 of the hardest kicks you can throw, a variety of kicks, followed by ending the hour with an extra set of workouts. Then the second hour is fighting for an hour. You spar for an hour, and you do self-defense stuff against certain attacks for an hour. Now, this particular kid always, well, I'm going to get better scores than anyone who ever did this test. I'm going to get better times than anyone who ever did this test. I'm going to be the best person of this studio who ever took this test. And so he would burn himself out on finishing the 2-mile run in under 15 minutes, and then he'd get to about the kick 200 and could not continue and would start vomiting. Right? And this is a highly athletic, highly in shape person, someone who was obviously more in shape and obviously a better fighter than some of the people I've had pass my black belt test. But he couldn't pass it because he didn't understand how to let his ego go. He didn't understand how to switch the concept away from winning and towards survival. Because my black belt test, that's what it's about. I want to know you can defend yourself. Defending yourself has nothing to do with winning fights. That's sport. Sport is winning fights. Defending yourself is surviving a fight. Survival. And that's why we put you in a very tough situation by getting you physically exhausted and then making you fight through the adrenaline and through the exhaustion to see if you can defend yourself. But it's not about winning the fights. It's about surviving the fights and not letting the other person do any real damage to you, right? That's what it's about. But this person, and every other person I've ever had attempt a test like this, they go in full of that ego of, I'm going to be the best. I'm the best fighter. I'm going to win every match. I'm going to win this. I'm going to do the best points. I'm going to do the best scores. And those people never survive the test. They never survive it. Hey, Mr. Hamilton, never survive that kind of stuff. And that is understanding the difference between confidence tempered by humility and confidence heightened to arrogance because of your ego. Your ego will tell you that you have no weaknesses. Your ego will tell you that you're better at everything than everybody else. Fact of the matter is you might be better at a lot of things than a lot of other people, but that doesn't make you a better person, and that doesn't mean that a less skilled person can't beat you. We all know in team sports, you can create a team of the best MVP players in the league, and then put them against a team who is not as skilled individually, but who is very good at playing as a team, very good at passing the ball around, very good at creating openings. And it's going to be a tough match, but more times than not, the teamwork team is going to win those games because the individuals are all trying to show off their own skills. So they're being ball hogs. They're showing off their skills. They're showing off all their stuff, but they're also getting beat on the offensive side because this other team knows how to move the ball around and separate their defense.
Yeah. And I have said all week in my classes, if you are the best person in the room, if you are the skilled, you are the smartest, you are the strongest, you are the fastest,
then you're wrong.
You need to find a new room.
Or you're wrong.
Or you're wrong.
Or you're simply wrong.
But either way, if you feel like you are the best in the room, you need to find a new room.
I'll tell you
where
what,
there is more competition.
But let me tell you which we have harder classes and stuff you can move up into. But let me tell you something about that I learned about this. So I had just got my first degree black belt. I was really proud of myself in Taekwondo. Now I'd had other belts and other rankings and other styles, but this was my first black belt I ever earned as an adult. So I was pretty proud of it, and I worked really hard for it. And I think where this lesson really sunk in is I started teaching around that time. And I was training these white belts, these beginners. I was training them, and we were at a belt test. They were ranking up, and I wanted to be their sparring partner. So I jumped in sparring, which obviously when I take them seriously, I'm running circles around them, but I wanted them to feel pretty good too. So I started playing with them. I started throwing real big fancy stuff that really had no place in the fight just to see how they'd react and give them chances to recover. And I was so full of myself that there was nothing these guys could do to stop me that I literally got field goal kicked between the leg by a white belt that was smaller than me. And it dropped me. And I was like, wow, how the heck did I let that happen to me? I let that happen to me because I got full of ego, because I got so confident in my skills that I left myself wide open thinking that this person doesn't have a shot at hitting me. They don't even have a shot at reaching me. I'm too quick. I'm too fast. I'm too good. And I ended up getting racked by a field goal kick directly between the legs. Not long after that happened, I kind of made the same mistake. I was going against a white belt who was bigger than me. He was a bigger fellow, right? I'm only like 5'8". He was like 6'1", 6'2". He had about 60 pounds on me, but he had terrible hip flexibility. So I decided I was going to keep blitzing him from a long distance. There was not much he could do to stop me, right? He could reach his arm out. He could try to guard. But if you know anything about a blitz, blitzes work really well against guards because the first hit hits the guard, then you turn the hand and grab the hand and pull that hand down in a quick motion while you punch behind it with the other hand. That's how blitzes work. They work against guards. So I start doing this to this guy thinking that he doesn't have the hip flexibility to stop me. The second time I did it, he got his hip up high enough that I ran my floating ribs directly into a side kick from him, and it dropped me. And this was an inexperienced white belt. At that point, I realized something I should have known all along. Anyone can beat you at any time, anywhere. Doesn't matter if you're 10 times more skilled than them. All it takes is taking one shot, leaving one opening that the other person happened to capitalize on, and you're done. Especially when you're talking about bare knuckle fighting. Most of what we do is focused on self-defense. That means bare knuckles, right? Now, we spar with gloves on and stuff, but we focus on the tactics of a bare knuckle fighter. Now, here's something that I've seen before that you need to be aware of. Bare knuckle fighting is not the same as sport fighting. When I box, it's different tactics than bare knuckles, right? When I box, I've got these things on my hands that soften the blows, right? Just a little bit. And that's to make the sport more exciting, to make me have to hit harder and more often to get a knockout. So the sport gets drug out, the fight gets drug out, it becomes more exciting. If it was bare knuckle, the fights would end too fast because people would be getting cut open with the knuckles and stuff like that. Even MMA uses gloves on their knuckles for this exact reason, to try to expand out the fight a little bit, right? And make it more exciting. So boxers often use this type of guard here, but if I'm bare knuckle and take that hit, it's not helpful. That guard doesn't actually help me much, which is why bare knuckle fighters often, and Muay Thai guys, they'll have their hands out here, right? They'll have their hands out in front of them, or kickboxers will have one hand here and one hand low because they know if the other person's going to kick, they got to defend their ribs. That's the first thing a lot of kids got to get over when they come into our class, is they've had daddy teaching them how to box, which is and I'm all for boxing, but so they get into sparring and they start getting here and they keep getting kicked in the ribs and the guts and they don't know how to stop it. Well, a kickboxing guard is not here. When I'm a distance of a kicker, my front arm is down covering my ribs, my backhand is here. Watch any kickboxer fight, you'll see that at distance they're here, at mid-range they're here, and when they get close, then they use the similar guard to Muay Thai or boxers use, right? But those pillows soften the blow. Bare knuckles don't. So here's something you need to understand. A bare knuckle strike doesn't have to have a lot of power to do a lot of damage. It just needs to be accurate. So I can be standing on one foot, stepping off to the side and throw a bare knuckle jab no harder than that. But if I catch you in the bridge of the nose, your nose is broken. It doesn't even have to be a hard shot. I saw this happen the other day in an underground bare knuckle fight that I come across on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, I don't know, one of those things. And this dude did this little off-angle jab. He was even leaning back when he throwed it. He leaned back when he threw the jab. So you know the jab didn't have that much power on it. But the knuckles connected right here. Other fighter covers his face, has his face covered for like 30 seconds. When he removes his hands, this part of his nose is literally crushed level with his eyes. This part was crushed in level with his eyes, and it turned his whole nose up. His entire nose got crushed by this offhanded jab. That's what bare knuckle strikes can do. A lot of people don't realize that because they watch boxing or they take some boxing and they're used to wearing the gloves, so they think, oh, no big deal to get hit. You start getting used to getting hit and you're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I can shrug off the hit. And that's true against someone who doesn't know how to punch. But someone who knows how to punch and is accurate with those bare knuckles can do some real damage. You need to have enough humility to know that maybe you do outskill your opponent, but you still need to respect that any offhanded jab could cause a lot of damage, and you need to make sure that you mitigate that damage. That's part of having humility, right, in martial arts. And we need to teach our kids this concept too. I understand that we want confident kids. I talk about it in my ads all the time. We're all about building confidence in kids, but confidence always needs to be tempered with humility. I can be confident in my skills without comparing those skills to somebody else. So whenever I go with a sparring partner, I never immediately think, okay, my hands are better than theirs or my kicks are better than theirs. Instead, I treat them with the respect of they only need to land one shot to hurt me. So what can I do to make sure they can't land that one shot? And I take them just as seriously as I take someone who's obviously more skilled than me. I learned to take the beginners seriously because they might just luck out and catch you when you were overconfident and knock you off your feet.
And beginners will try weird stuff.
They'll try weird
They'll
stuff.
try anything.
So as a trained fighter, you kind of get used to fighting trained fighters. Does that make sense? And every once in a while, you got to go back and fight the beginners because they're going to throw some, they haven't learned that much yet. So in sparring, they'll throw some real unorthodox stuff that may not really work most of the time. But as a trained fighter, you can get so full of yourself. Well, I beat trained fighters all the time, so I'm great. Then you go against a beginner and they throw some crap you've never seen before. You're just like, what was that? And it hits you. And you're like, well, I can't give them a hard time for it because it worked on me, right?
And honestly, I like my higher ranks and black belts to come spar my beginners.
I encourage it. During sparring weeks, I always tell my intermediates, advanced, and black belts to take at least one class of the beginners during sparring weeks because it'll work one of two ways. Either it's going to humble you or it's going to grow your confidence. So my less confident fighters that are always reserved as intermediate or advanced ranks, I tell them, go fight with the beginners. It's going to raise your confidence level. You're going to feel a lot better. But my people that get a little full of themselves, I'm like, go fight the beginner adults. They're going to knock you down a peg or two, you know, because my beginner adults, by the time they get their second or third rank, they're sharp. They don't know many techniques, but the techniques they know, the jab, the cross, the front kick, the teep kick, the techniques they know they're good at. And they stick to those basics. And those basics can be enough to tear apart an experienced fighter who thinks you're not as good as them, right? Sorry for cutting you off. Good.
But I want the advanced ranks and black belts to come spar my beginners because my beginners also need to see that they make mistakes. Not that them personally, but that the advanced ranks and
still
black
make mistakes. Black belts still make mistakes. Like
And
I said, strive for perfection, but perfection doesn't exist. You can always get better. Yeah, and so.
So they're not afraid of the advanced ranks and black belts anymore.
Right.
Because I don't want them to be afraid. Anyone can win anything or get any shot at any given time. No one is better than anyone else.
I have seen beginner ranks win grand champ sparring against the black belts at tournaments before. Now, granted, I'm talking about the 18 to 34-year-old division, which is a wide range. And so what sometimes happens is a beginner or intermediate ranked 19-year-old comes in and cleans up against the 34-year-old black belts, you know.
Yeah.
And that happens. It does happen. You know, I want to answer Hamilton's comment. Do we do any nunchuck or staff fighting? Now, I used to do what we call creatives weapons class. When you get into sport fighting and sport karate, there's all kinds of divisions you can do, from traditional self-defense to traditional forms to traditional weapons to creative extreme forms to point fighting to continuous kickboxing. There's like a lot of divisions you can compete in. And my competition team does do creative and extreme weapons. We don't do traditional weapons because my main black belt, yes, I have others, but my main black belt is in Taekwondo. Taekwondo doesn't traditionally incorporate weapons in the same way that different styles of karate and things do. So our main style of forms, there are no traditional weapon forms. Now, have I done a lot of traditional training with staff and nunchuck and stick and whatnot? Yeah, and I love it. I enjoy it. And we used to have a class for it, but that class got unpopular. People don't like getting tapped in the knuckles with sticks. They don't like having to hit themselves with a staff. Like when you fight with a staff, you have to hit yourself with it too as you strike. People don't like that. So they get all excited about doing weapons. They try it out for 3 weeks to go, oh, this hurts, and they quit. So we don't really have that class anymore, but my competition team still does weapon fighting. Yes, padded sword, padded nunchuck, padded staff, that sort of thing. And they also do creative extreme, which is where they get to create a form that is 60% traditional movement, 40% tricking, dancing, flipping, gymnastics, acrobatics, or whatever, and it's a performance art division. Yeah. So they basically perform to a song, and then they get judged versus other people performing their forms to songs and stuff like that. So to answer your question, yes, we do some of that. We do not incorporate it into classes much anymore. Every once in a while, the black belt class will. The only class I do that still focuses on traditionalized martial arts weapons is my competition team, because they compete in them. So yeah, that's still a thing that we do, right? But, you know, back to humility. So we're talking about kids. We need to temper kids' confidence. So I'm all about building kids' confidence, and I do it all the time. But when a kid starts to get a little full of themselves, I also make sure that we temper that with humility. And I describe humility to them as, look, dude, just don't be a jerk. Don't assume that you're better than somebody. Even if you think you know you are, never make that assumption. Always assume your opponent is better than you. Always, always, always assume your opponent knows more than you and they're better than you. Well, he's just a white belt. Doesn't matter. Assume he's better than you. Always, right? Because that white belt might have a better jab than you. And that jab might be enough to keep you at bay.
Or you might make a mistake and step wrong.
Or you might step the wrong way and take that low kick and get swept. You know what I mean? Like anything can happen at any time. All it takes is one little mistake and one capitalized opportunity. That's all it takes, right? So, you know, you even see it in professional fighting a lot. There's a lot of fights out there that a losing record underdog has beaten an undefeated fighter because the undefeated fighter slipped, let his hands drop, boom, took that chin knock, went down, right? So these things do happen. So with kids, and not just with kids, but I do this with the adults too. When I do start to get a little overconfident, I put them with very specific partners. See, every martial arts studio has something that's called a gatekeeper or two in every class. And that goes, okay, well, you've proven that you've gotten good enough that you scare the other white belts, right? Or the other beginners. And that's fine. But when you are outclassing an opponent, remember that drills and sparring is not just for you, it's for your partner too. So sometimes you're going to go against people that within the first couple of minutes, you're like, okay, they're less skilled. All right, but teach them. Give them the opportunity. It's important when you're training fighting in particular, it's important to train your training partners. If you want better training partners, help train the beginners to be better. They become your training partners of next year, right? So if you're obviously outclassing them, then show them some things. Help them work through some things while they're sparring. Show them how to tighten their technique. Show them how to time the technique better. Show them how and when to use things. Help coach them a little bit, right? And when you're against a different opponent that's pushing you, then push back, right? But never, in sparring, you're not ever supposed to make somebody afraid of you, right? Now, get your licks in and then back up and give them a chance to go. But in a real fight, it's different. In a real sport fight, it's different. We were talking about this in my competition team today. In normal sparring, no, you don't want to make your opponent afraid of you. But in point fighting or continuous kickboxing, you want to make them afraid of you right out the bat. Because the second they start doubting their skills against you, they start leaving openings for you. And you don't even have to be as skilled at them to pick them apart. You just have to be a good tactician. A good tactician can beat a more skilled fighter quite easily, right? By using the correct tactics in the correct times. So that's kind of important. So what do? We give you a gatekeeper. All right, So now you're getting to the point that you're not being a good sparring partner for the beginners anymore, and you say, well, they're not good enough to spar me. They're not this, they're not that. First way to frustrate your sensei. So then what I do is I go look around at somebody your size and I go, hey, gatekeeper, come over here. Hey, this guy wants to go hard. You want to do a hard round? And they'll always, if you have a good gatekeeper, they're usually soft sparrers, really light sparrers. They love to spar. They'll spar anybody. You can put a little kid with them and they'll be super safe sparring the little kid. But if you tell them, hey, this guy wants to go all out, they'll smile. Okay. Because they don't go all out that often and they're excited for the chance to test their skills. And those guys will humble you every time. Every time. Because those guys just enjoy the fight. And they love sparring light and they love sparring the kids and they'll teach smaller opponents and they'll whatever. But there's always that guy, you know they're a great sparrer, but you know if you tell them they're allowed to go all out, they're going to get excited. And that's where I go, okay, hey, this guy says people don't fight him hard enough. You want to do a hard round with him? Yeah. All right. And every single time, I think we've had 100% success rate with this. Every single time, the beginner will then at the end of that fight go, okay, I see what you mean. And then I walk up to him and I say, look, that dude picked you apart. He was hitting it hard. How did you feel getting hit hard like that and feeling like you can't do anything, feeling like you're helpless because you can't stop him? Well, it made me feel bad and I got really angry and I got really scared and then the anger wasn't working because I couldn't make that work. The more angry I got, the more he hit me and it started hurting worse and I started to get afraid. And I said, stop you right there. That's how you're making your other training partners feel. If you didn't like feeling that way, try not to make your other training partners feel that way. Sure, put in your good work, but keep the contact light. And then when you know you won that clash, back up and let them have a turn. You know what I mean? That's just respectful sparring. That's just respectfully how you handle people. And with kids, it works the same way. Sometimes I'll get a kid. I got a kid right now, got real big for his britches. And I tried talking to him about it. I tried backing him down. But the biggest straw was I put him with a student who's a little neurospicy, a little less skilled. And I told him, I was like, I want a nice, light, technical round. And I backed up. And next thing I know, this one dude throws the other kid on the ground. It was a good takedown. I'll give him that. Throws the other kid on the ground. The other kid's guarded up. And he just starts slamming him hard in the back of the headgear. Now, I had gloves and headgear on, but that can still do damage. So I immediately ran over, pulled him off. I was like, no, that's not acceptable. We do throw strikes on the ground, but you don't actually try to knock them out with it, right? Tap, 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 tap. That's hard enough. That's hard enough. They feel it. It hurts. That's enough. No need to throw the full shoulder into it. You know what I'm saying? So I pulled him off and I was like, look, man, you can't treat your sparring partners that way. You wouldn't like it if other partners treated you that way. He looked at me and goes, yeah, I would. I'd love it. Gatekeeper.
Oh, no, I know who exactly that was based on that statement right there.
So, and I have like 4 gatekeepers in my class. And it's funny because when I put the gatekeepers against each other, they bang hard and they smile and laugh and love it. They never get mad. They never get frustrated because they know they're equally skilled fighters, right? So they know they just have fun clashing with it because they know neither one of them can really outmaneuver the other one. But then when they also know when I bring one of these other guys over, I say, all right, he wants to go hard. And I tell my gatekeepers, do not go any harder than he goes. Start light. If he gets aggressive and starts swinging hard, you swing equally hard. If he escalates more, you escalate more. That's what my gatekeepers are told to do. And then I had to call that match halfway through it because basically this kid ended up, I say kid, he's like 15. But this kid ended up getting the same treatment that he gave the other kid. So I pulled him up and he looked like dazed. And I was like, look, man, that wasn't no fun, was it? And at first I could tell it wasn't fun. He had like a tear on his cheek. And I was like, wasn't fun, was it? And then he took a deep breath and goes, oh no, it was a blast. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this group then. And he looked at me shocked. What? I don't get to go back with my group? Nope. No. If you think this is so fun, you can stay with these guys. And I left him with those guys for the rest of that match. And for the next day, he came in for sparring. Now, after that, he lightened up a lot. He still says, oh no, I want to go hard. But at the same time, every time it happened to him, he would start turning his back, running away from the fight, begging to stop. Okay, we'll stop. And now it's like, okay, dude, you can be stubborn all you want and tell me that you like it, but I can see on your face that you don't. You're just trying to be stubborn at this point, and I don't want you to make your training partners feel that way,
It's
right?
the ADHD authority defiance.
It's the authority defiance. This kid has authority defiance, yes. So, and now I want to put all this together by saying, at no point in time has anyone ever put in any real danger of getting a concussion or a broken bone or anything. We're not talking about that level of contact, just enough to make it scary, just enough to make you feel helpless. You know what I mean? So that they realize what they're doing to their training partners. And that's the way that, you have to temper that confidence with humility. I always did that with my own son too. If he made an arrogant, overconfident statement, I would say, hey, look, man, there's always going to be someone that's going to teach you otherwise. And if he didn't believe me, someone would teach him otherwise eventually. And eventually he got to the point that he respects everybody he goes against. If I put him in a sparring match against a white belt, he spends the first 30 seconds feeling them out first to test their speed and their reaction time and their alignment before he takes any risks of getting hit by them, which is what pro fighters do. If they don't know how to approach their opponent, they approach cautiously. If they've watched a lot of video on their opponent and they think an aggressive approach will be the weakness of their opponent, then they'll approach aggressively right at the beginning, right? But typically they feel each other out first because they don't want to walk into something and lose the fight in the first couple of rounds because they walked into something needlessly. You know what I mean?
I don't know. My favorite is you can tell people who really love sparring each other and who spar each other pretty frequently.
And they'll go harder with each other because they trust each other. They know they're not going to hurt each other.
Well, and they'll go a little harder right off the bat because they kind of know what they think they know what to expect from their partner. And then every once in a while, some things get shaken up, and so it's pretty fun.
So being humble is about being confident, but not letting ego get in the way of understanding your own weaknesses and understanding that other people can get the better of you, right? That's a big part of humility. Another part of humility I like to talk about is humility creates encouragement. It's not about putting others down. So if I'm confident in my skills and I know I way outclass my partner, I'm not going to put them down for it. If I put them down for it, I'm starting to come across as arrogant and mean-spirited. Instead, what I'm going to do is encourage them. Hey, man, you had the right idea by throwing that side kick when I came forward. You just mistimed it. Let's slow it down so we can get that timing, right? And I'm going to encourage them. I'm going to say, hey, man, I know you feel like I got the better of you in each one of those boxing clashes, but I want you to know you were doing a better job of your footwork and head movement to get under and slip, and you almost managed to slip that hook punch. I just caught you at the top of the head because you didn't get low enough, but in all reality, it was the right move to make. And so if I'm confident but humble, I have no problem encouraging others. And this allows me to train better training partners. And all of my black belts understand this. My son understands this. For a while, my son went through a phase where there weren't really any good training partners here that were able to push him too much, except for the older, bigger kids, which felt a little unfair because they had twice the reach. And I would tell my son, you want better training partners? Go over there to the beginners and help them learn to be better than you. And he took that. He went over to the beginners, started helping them learn to be better than him. And now a lot of them managed to push him around. They're advanced ranks now, and they managed to push him around. And he managed to train himself, good training partners for himself. That's part of martial arts, is give and take, right? As a beginner in an intermediate rank, an advanced rank and a black belt is always that could outclass me at any point, is always going to take the time to help me and encourage me to get better. Because they know that the better they help me get, the better training partner I'm going to become for them. What I have issue with is if I get an advanced rank or black belt that gives me I don't want to have to spar anyone under than me because I don't want to babysit somebody. I don't want to hold their hand. Really? Because someone held your hand on the way up. Someone babysat you when you were on your way up. How many advanced ranks and black belts took it easy on you and encouraged you and taught you to get you to where you are, and you don't have enough humility to give back to the people that got you to the next people, to pay it forward to the next people, and the same way those other people got you to where you're at? That is the quickest way to get kicked out of my studio. There are very few ways to get kicked out of my studio, but that's a quick one. I don't want you as a student if that's the way you're going to look at things.
And also, humility builds trust, right?
It does.
If we are frequently partners and we show each other, we show humility, that builds trust. That lets me know that when I'm screwing up, he is going to help me. Yeah. And that when we're sparring, that we can let loose a little bit, and if it starts to get out of control, we can communicate.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Go, hey, we need to reset. And capoeira is one of my favorite performing arts. They have a concept like this, where if things get too heated, it starts to feel too personal, someone's starting to feel too pushed, the other person that's feeling pushed can give this motion right here. That motion is an invite to your partner to meet you by doing this to you as well. And that is an agreement that we are going to start over. We're going to take a deep breath. We're going to start over. We're going to start light again. And we're going to start over because things are getting a little too crazy. You should do the same thing in traditional martial arts, right? There needs to be signals. Yeah, there needs to be signals, right? And another example of humility that I'm always looking for is me and her have completely different skills when it comes to sparring, striking, and grappling. But our skills are very good at countering each other, right? Her kicks are very good at countering my grappling. My hands are really good at countering her kicks. My footwork is good at countering her kicks. Her grappling is good at countering my hands. So there's a pretty level, playing field here. But if we spar and we both start to realize we're not really landing our shots, we're not getting anything, you'll see the speed of the techniques escalate as we try to work things in and get the other person to mess up their guard. Because at the advanced levels of fighting, just throwing a technique is never going to land. Your opponent's going to have the distance and the guard to handle it. And so it becomes about getting your opponent to move their guard and then going where the guard's not there. This is called creating openings or training your opponent, right? That's the advanced level of this. If we're starting to get more and more heated because neither one of us can get past the other's defense, then techniques speed up. They get thrown harder, et cetera, et cetera. And then maybe I catch her off guard and boom, I catch her with a little cross or hook or jab. And because I'm trying to move as quick as possible to get past her defense, maybe I connect a lot harder than I meant to. So someone who is egotistical and has no respect or care for their partner will immediately follow that with more shots until the partner goes down or is knocked out or whatever. Now, that's the way it should be done in sport, but that's not the way it should be done in sparring. You know what I mean? Once I land that first one, I know that her head turns, so we both know that that one punch would have won me the fight if I kept going. So instead, I'm going to stop right there. Bam! Oh, I am so sorry. I did not mean to hit you that hard. I got a little heated with the speed, and I misjudged the distance. I am terribly, terribly sorry. Do you want to slow things down a little bit? And she can respond with, yeah, can we slow down and restart and build back up? Or she might respond with, nah, it was all right. I threw my head into it a little bit. It wasn't as bad as we thought. Let's just keep going, right? And we'll keep going at that level, right? That is having enough humility to apologize for accidentally nearly injuring your partner, or maybe even purposefully nearly injuring your partner. You need to immediately stop the match and apologize and check on them and make sure you didn't injure your training partner. Injuring your training partners is how you run out of training partners. Running out of training partners means you're not going to get better anymore. And this goes for any martial art, any athletics, right? If we're talking about MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Taekwondo, or a place like us that mixes styles together, Jiu-Jitsu guys are big on this kind of thing too. I get the submission, I get to my position, and if I'm against a less experienced fighter, my job is to hold them there and let them try to fight their way out, not break their arm. Okay? Because if I start hurting my training partners by applying submissions too hard or too suddenly or too fast, then when it comes time to spar, everyone's going to avoid me. And after a certain point where maybe I've even had training partners that outdo me, but I scared them a little bit by making them think that I was going to snap their shoulder or do something like that. So even if they can outdo me, that middle-aged father of three that's way better than me is not going to want to grapple or spar with me anymore if I nearly hurt him one time with a lucky shot that he let me have. Here's another thing you need to understand, and this is particularly in jiu-jitsu, but it's also in other combat sports too. Sometimes the more advanced fighter will let you have stuff just so you get the feel for what it's like to get it. They could have countered it, they could have defended it, but they chose not to give you the chance to feel what it's like to set that armbar. If you were paying kind by jerking the armbar real tight, real fast, and they go, whoa, dude, don't injure me, then they're going to get offended and they're going to go, you know what, I don't want to go with that guy anymore. Because if I let him have something, if I teach him something, he's going to hurt me with it. So they stop going with that guy. Then pretty soon when it comes time to roll in the jiu-jitsu class, everybody finds their own partner and starts rolling, and one or two guys are left over there at the side going, you want to roll? No, I don't want to roll. Oh, all right. So they have to sit out of the sparring. Why? Because no one else wants to go with them anymore, because everyone else knows they don't want to take on that high risk of injury where that other person's going to injure them. Once you run out of training partners, you run out of chances to get better. You need to understand that in combat sports. So you have to have some respect for the safety of your partner. I always follow the rules of like Superfoot Wallace and Benny the Jet You guys know who they were. They were some of the first full contact kickboxers in America. They created the first full contact kickboxing league in America. Incredible fighters. They're all in their 70s, 80s now. They're still incredible fighters. Go out and find some videos of them. They're all over TikTok. Chuck Norris, Superfoot Wallace, Benny the Jet, they all currently post tactics and fight videos on TikTok. Go watch them. Get on YouTube and watch them. They post some really fun stuff. And even they will tell you that, yeah, in the fight, in the sport or whatever, right, it's all about that contact. But when you're sparring, you're just sparring. This is friendly. We're not trying to injure each other. They'll tell you the first rule of sparring, look out for your partner's safety. Second rule of sparring, look out for your own safety if your partner starts to disregard theirs. So first, I'm looking for her safety. Second, if she starts disregarding my safety, I quit worrying about her safety, start worrying about mine, and fight back, right? The third consideration is to try some new stuff. Try some fun techniques. Try something you've never done before and have some fun with it. Give yourself a goal, like I'm going to land 3 head kicks this match, or I'm going to do 2 leg drags this match, or I'm going to try to catch a kick this match, or I'm going to try box only this match, or whatever, right? Give yourself some kind of challenge, but it should never be about injuring each other. It should never get to that level, right? Not in sparring. You want to get to that level? Go compete in the sport. Go compete in the sport. You can fight at that level, but training and sparring should not be like that, right? You should be practicing your tactics, your techniques, your quickness, your speed, your accuracy, but never with the intent to harm your sparring partner. That's how you lose partners, and that's how nobody wants to train with you anymore. You lose too many training partners, and you have nobody to train with you anymore. And martial arts is a partner-specific sport. It requires a lot of partner training, sparring, and drilling to get good at, right?
And you need a wide variety of partners so that you spar against people who are bigger and smaller and stronger or faster.
Quicker or whatever, so that you learn. Like, the best fighters aren't the ones who have the strongest punches or the strongest kicks or the best kickboxing or the best grappling or the best takedowns. The best fighters have skills in all of it, maybe, sometimes, maybe not. What the best fighters do have, though, is a variety of experience against these different types of opponents, so they're adaptable. So they know how to adapt to a smaller, quicker opponent. They know how to adapt to a taller, quicker opponent. They know how to adapt to a slower, stronger opponent. They know how to adapt to a grappler. They know how to adapt to a wrestler. They know how to adapt to a boxer. They know how to adapt to a kicker, which is why our curriculum is completely mixed, like old school karate used to be, where it included everything that's in jiu-jitsu was in old school traditional karate. Jiu-jitsu sectioned it out of old school karate and made it its own specific thing. All of jiu-jitsu, all of Brazilian jiu-jitsu used to be part of some of the original karate stylings. It just got sectioned out. The old school karate forms had self-defense aspects in them that simply aren't taught much anymore. There's a reason that those existed, and people have simply forgotten it because of the passed down by oral tradition thing, right? And there's all kinds of other stuff. So we mix it all together in our curriculum, which most people would call MMA, but we don't follow MMA rules. We follow self-defense rules. MMA has rules that we don't apply, right? And so we go more into the old school where we incorporate a little of that. Now, sometimes we have a student who develops as a stronger clinch work, grappler, or takedown artist. Sometimes we have a student that develops a strong striking game, boxing game, or kicking game, or kickboxing game, or clinch game, or Muay Thai game, or throwing knees, or close quarters fighters, or long distance fighters. And so our students, because we teach all of it, our students in kind of specializing themselves into their favorite stuff. But they all have to spar each other so that really good wrestler, that boxer has to learn how to deal with him. That grappler has to learn to deal with that boxer, right? That kickboxer's got to learn to deal with that grappler, that takedown artist. That takedown artist or that boxer's got to learn to deal with that kicker, right? So everybody has to learn how to be adaptable to what you're facing. But you have to have humility to do it. You have to check your ego at the door and understand that you can learn something from everybody. Last thing I want to leave you guys on this. There's this concept in the martial arts world with newbies, like people who have never done it before or zero experience, or people that want to become fighters but have never trained. There's this common idea of, I want to fight the teacher first because I want to make sure that they can beat me in a fight before I train under them. Now let me answer that. That is entirely an ego thing and will get you kicked out at 90% of the studios, dojos, dojangs that you walk into. They're going to kick you out. As soon as you ask that, they're going to go, get out of here. We don't want you here. We don't want that ego here. And it's not because that person can't beat you. They absolutely can. It's because they don't want that level of ego. Because if someone is that full of themselves, they are nearly impossible to teach. Because every time you try to break down and teach them something like a basic jab and how to use it for distance management, they're going to be well, I'm just going to do this and I'm just going to do that. And then you have to answer that, yes, you could do that. That is a viable next step. That's not what we're talking about right now. Right now, we're breaking down and we're talking about the jab. Yes, that would be a good counter to the jab. We'll get into that later. Right now, let's focus on developing our jab. Right? But that ego keeps saying, well, I'll just beat it with this. Here's the thing about martial arts. It's rock, paper, scissors. There's always something that beats everything. Always. There is never a foolproof technique that can't be beat. There's not. There's not a single one, no matter what martial art you train, that's a foolproof technique that can't be beat. What matters is, did you surprise your opponent with it? It worked, right? Did you catch him off guard with it? Then it worked. Did you set up an opening with it? Yes, then it worked, right? So I'm getting off topic here. But I forgot what point I was trying to make.
Fighting the instructor.
Fighting the instructor, right. So the problem with that is people with that mentality are impossible to train. And here's what I want to leave you with. How many top-level MMA coaches could currently beat an MMA champion? I'll wait, because the answer is none. Not a single top-level MMA coach could beat any of the fighters, professional fighters that they train. Maybe some of the beginners, but not the guys that are pro, not the highly competitive guys. None of the trainers can beat them, can beat their own fighters. The fighters know this, but they have enough humility to understand that that trainer has knowledge and can give them experience and set them up in situations to become better fighters. The trainer in Rocky was not a better boxer than Rocky. You understand that, right? He was just more knowledgeable. Here's the thing. When you train on your own, you can't notice your own mistakes. You won't see it. You won't see the fact that you're hanging your thumb out. You won't see the fact that your punch is hitting at a weird angle. You won't see the fact that your legs aren't aligned to give you the most power possible on that punch. You can't see it in yourself. That's why coaches exist. Because we are sitting there watching you shadow box, watching you spar. And then we stop you and go, look, you just were in this situation and you missed this opportunity. So I want you to set it up and drill it so that you learn to recognize the opportunity and take it. Coaches are there to sit back without the adrenaline clouding their vision and watch what happens in real time so that we can approach you and show you what your weaknesses are. We are watching you to point out the weaknesses you have when you spar. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So when you take on a coach, it doesn't matter if the coach is more physically skilled than you are or can beat you in a fight. What matters is, can the coach teach you to be a better fighter? Can the coach train you to be a better fighter? And you know what every coach is looking for? A teachable student. A student that's willing to break things down, to work on one thing at a time, to simplify everything, and then slowly build it back up. So an egotistical person will take jab work and go, well, I could just do this, or I could just throw this uppercut. Yes, you could. But we're going to get into that after you get a good jab. After you've got the jab work down, now we're going to talk about countering a jab. After you've got the jab counters down, now we're going to talk about defending the counter jab and countering that. But it builds. You don't start with the 4-piece combo. You start with the one punch. And you build to the 4-piece combos. And you build the defense one step at a time. You don't immediately go in and focus on 5-hit combos. That just ain't how it works. Because then you're going to get into your first competitive match. You're going to try to throw that 5-hit combo, and you're going to get countered twice in the middle of it and get knocked out.
Because you're swinging
Because
your elbows
you're
wide.
swinging your elbows wide and you're unfamiliar with how other people might counter those strikes. Training under a coach who is familiar in how people are going to counter your strikes can show you your weaknesses. Never be so full of yourself that you're uncoachable. Never walk into a studio and go, well, I'm only going to train here if I can beat. And here's how a lot of studio owners deal, especially jiu-jitsu guys. They'll go, okay, I'll do a match with you then. And then that guy, that black belt, that leader, that instructor is going to proceed to destroy you for the next 3 to 5 minutes until you can't take any more and you give up. And then when you get up and say, okay, you beat me, I'm willing to train here, he's going to go, no, get out. I don't want people like you in my studio. I just fought you to prove a point. Now get out. And if you really want to train somewhere, don't walk in there making challenges. And they'll tell them that and send them out. Jiu-jitsu guys are the best about this. Honestly, other martial artists do it too. Well, I got to beat the instructor before I... Okay, come on, let's spar. And then I'm going to proceed to tear you to shreds. And I'm not going to look at you as a less skilled sparrer, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to assume you're better than me. And I'm going to fight like you're better than me, meaning I'm going to take you very stinking seriously. And by taking you seriously, if you don't have the skills to actually match it, I'm going to tear you to shreds one piece at a time. First, I'm going to destroy your leg. Then when your hand starts dropping, I'm going to go for your head. When your hands come back up, I'm going to attack your forearms. I'm going to attack your biceps. I'm going to attack your ribs. As your hands start to drift back down, I'm going to attack your head again. And I'm going to proceed to tear you up for 3 to 5 minutes. And then when you say, okay, yeah, you're pretty good, I think I will train here, I'm going to say, no, get out. I don't want to train you.
And the thing is, around here, that's not actually going to happen. Because what's going to happen when you come in here is I'm your instructor.
Yeah, she's the beginner instructor.
5'1", 125 pounds of me.
Yeah, and I'm going to...
If you don't want that,
yeah.
Bye.
And we're going to laugh at you. You go, well, I want to fight the instructor. So we're like, I am the instructor. Well, I don't hit girls.
Okay, you can
That's
stand
your
there
problem.
and let me hit you.
That's your problem. Get out. And mostly our answer to that is, dude, we are not, why would I take a challenge from you? Because if I hurt you, or I tear you apart, you get your ego hurt, you get your feelers hurt, you leave here, you go grab the weapon you have in your truck, you go get your 5 buddies, you wait till all my students are gone, wait till I'm locking up in the parking lot, and then you jump me. Because that's what's going to happen. If I beat you, you're going to do some crazy, stupid crap like that.
Yep.
If you win, I have now risked injury for what? What do I get from winning the fight? A student? I can get students without fighting. What do I get for winning the fight? Nothing. So what reason do I have to fight? None. And you know what the reason a black belt will almost always be like that to you? Because they have real fight experience. Because they have fought thousands of times, thousands of hours. And they know the risks they're putting themselves under, and they will not even defend themselves in public if they don't have to. Someone who knows the damage a bare knuckle punch can do, someone who knows how fragile the floating ribs and sternum are, someone who knows how dangerous a kick to the kneecap can be, is not going to fight unless they absolutely have to. They're not going to. So if she tries to start a fight with me out in a bar or something, nah, ain't worth it, man. Hey, I'll buy you a drink. I'll just leave. I'll go to another bar. Oh, but I want to fight. Come in. Nah, I ain't fighting you here. Just go get a drink from the bar. Put it on my tab. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go somewhere else. And why are martial artists like that? Because we've been tagged with bare knuckle punches. Because we've been cut with bare knuckle punches. Because we've been forced through conditioning drills where we have to take leg kicks and shots to the body repeatedly to prove our toughness, and we know how bad it hurts. So why would we risk that? What's the payoff? Now, I might do it as a sport because the payoff is money. I get paid to fight.
And then I get to rest.
And then I get to rest, right? But in most self-defense scenarios, what do I get out of fighting this guy? Nothing. Possibly an assault charge. What else do I get out of it? Nothing.
Because the thing is then it's about my life.
Good fighters don't fight for no reason. They spar for fun. They might fight for sport or if their life depended on it. But people who reach a certain level of experience don't just fight for fighting's sake. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care if you think, I don't care if you think I'm not strong. I don't care if you think I'm not tough enough to fight. Fact of the matter is, it's not just about me not wanting to get hurt. It's about me not wanting to hurt you. Because I know I could accidentally land a lean back jab like I talked about earlier in this to completely crush your nose. And now you sue me for the damage to your nose and the reconstructive surgery. Or worse, I had a martial arts friend who got knocked into at a bar and got mad about it because he spilled his drink. So he turned around and punched the other dude in the head. The dude that got punched in the head fell and hit his head on a concrete planter that was sitting next to the bar. He died. The man who got punched died from his head hitting that concrete planter on the way down. So now this dude who defended himself off an aggressive, egotistical moment, who wanted to show himself up compared to this upstart, arrogant guy that knocked into him, now has to sit in prison because he killed a man over ego. Do you understand? Right? Do you understand where this goes? These are true stories. So real fighters, they don't fight without a cause, which is why our slogan has always been, peaceful warriors still fight for a cause, but only for a cause, not for ego. Not for your ego, not for mine. I don't fight for my own confidence. I earn that in different ways. So until we see you guys again, be the best teammates you can be, and be the best at being you.